Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Hello, my name is Adam Gershenson, and I'm with NutraScience Labs. And today's safety tip is checking your forklift prior to each shift and having preventative maintenance plan in place. Each operator, you should use a daily checklist to check all functions on your forklift, your horns, your brakes, tires, hydraulic controls, fluids, etc. Your employees are the most valuable asset, and maintaining a safe work environment is your number one obligation.
With e-commerce off the charts, many small and growing warehouses are asking, how can I get ahead when my warehouse is barely keeping up? The answer is future-ready warehouse tech from Zebra Technologies. Warehouses can simplify and upgrade all processes, from automated inventory management to hands-free picking, with Zebra's tailored, scalable mobile solutions. They're simple and intuitive. There's never been a better time to upgrade for success with Zebra. How can your warehouse get ahead? The answer's in black and white. Get the answers at zebra.com/theanswer. That's zebra.com/theanswer. Fulfillment demand continues to skyrocket and outpace available labor. To keep up, warehouse operators are turning to flexible fulfillment solutions like 6 River Systems. Utilizing 6 River Systems' award-winning combination of collaborative robots, artificial intelligence, and operational expertise will make your associates and wall-to-wall fulfillment workflow more efficient. No new infrastructure, no change to warehouse layout, easy to deploy and scale, easy to train and retain associates, all at half the cost of traditional automation. Want to take your fulfillment operation to the next level? Go to www.6river.com to learn more. That's www.6river.com to learn more.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. On today's episode, I will be joined by Adam Gershenson. He is the Director of Logistics and Fulfillment at NutraScience Labs. And NutraScience Labs is focused on helping companies create their vitamins and supplements and things of that nature full service, from what I understand. Adam will give us a little more detail. But he's a fellow operations, warehousing, logistics guy, which I do during the day myself. So it'll be interesting to connect with him. We're going to talk a little bit about, working in controlled environments, and also, creating more efficiencies and importance of upgrading things like IT and training to create streamlines, and also importance of meetings and some open lines of communication with your team members. So really interested to hear from him and also talk to him, kind of some shop talk, I guess, in a sense. So Adam, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. Kevin, thank you for having me.
Definitely happy to have you on and connect with the fellow warehouse operations guy. It's good to do that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your career and kind of how you ended up where you are now at NutraScience Labs as Director of Logistics and Fulfillment?
All right. Well, first, to be honest, I started from the ground up. I started as a warehouse temp for a audio video company just when flat screens came out.
Okay.
Went through the process of going from being a temp to perm as a warehouse associate. Did the grind for about 2 years or so with that company, progressed to become the warehouse lead over there after establishing, my work ethic and pretty much just helping the business evolve. And then from warehouse lead, I did that for about another year. And then I got into warehouse management and did that there for another 5 years or so. Did a transition from a small facility in Long Island to a larger facility in another part of Long Island. And pretty much grew the company, over that time. And then an opportunity came from NutraScience Labs. They reached out to me. They saw my resume. And I started here as a logistics coordinator. To be honest with you, it was a position they never even had before or even knew they needed. They had a support staff that was taking care of it for a while. The business was growing at that point, so they needed something dedicated to that position. And then from there, I established a lot of different procedures, different vendors I onboarded for LTL or FTL. We started reefer service, all that kind of stuff. And then eventually it grew into an operations manager at one point in time. And then I became the director of logistics and fulfillment services about 5 years ago or so. And NutraScience is a great company to work for. They are all about investing in their people and letting them grow within the company. As the company grows, they want you to grow as well. And it's a fantastic place to work.
You know, I think it's really interesting because I think a lot of people in like the warehousing logistics space, they kind of have similar paths to you. Like they start out as a temp, maybe not initially. I don't know if initially you were interested in working in logistics and warehousing.
Not at all. No, I actually had no career path. 25 at the time too. World's my oyster. No idea what I wanted to do. Yeah. Just kind of fell into it. And then all of a sudden decided I liked it and then just put as much effort as I possibly could into it. And then it paid off. Yeah. And, I'm, in my 30s at this point, but I see, the younger generation that I want to afford the same opportunity that I had to learn about process and warehousing, because it's just a booming industry. It keeps growing based on e-commerce. And the need is out there, and the amount of people in this field, even though there's a lot at larger places, it's still I guess it's harder to find certain, like somewhere you could grow with. The bigger places, you kind of get lost in the sauce a little bit more. On these smaller companies, you have this ability to shine and show what you're worth and then develop different skill sets. It could be on just a personnel level, be managing people. It could be on an IT level. It could be on inventory management. It could be logistics. It could be a bunch of different things, but it's so spread out now that really you could carve whatever path you're looking for as long as you put the effort into it.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because, my career started out very similar. I started as a temp in inventory control as well. And during the daytime, I'm an inventory control manager now. So I'm curious, I do have some students that I work with and mentoring and things in the supply chain space. So, and I know they're listening, or they listen every once in a while at least. That's what they tell me. I guess they entertain me. But so, to get some perspective, because this is actually a pretty interesting thing, is, you started as a warehouse temp and now you're director level, right? So what's the time frame there? How long has it been since you started as a temp until now, if you don't mind sharing?
2006, I started as a warehouse temp, and then as of 2015, I became the director of logistics.
Oh wow! So like 10 years about, right? Yeah,
10 years. And just going through the grind. You got to remember too, as in the warehouse field, you are the last line of defense for the company. Right. So the last impression your customer is going to see is from what your team does. And the people that are, how I put this, the people that usually get paid the least amount are actually have the most impact on your customers. And that's what's something you have to always think about, is that how is that end user experience going to be, right? Because the sales rep at the end of the day, they're going to live or die based on how that delivery goes. And you have no idea if they're going to get another order, which is, at the end of the day, it's money in your pocket too. Right. You have to think about it full circle on an organizational level. And by preaching that to your team and then showing them the importance and the cause and effect of how things go is really important, because you're all at the end of the day, we're all, we want to work to live. We don't want to live to work. Right. So we want to make sure everything moves as smooth as possible, so we could go and rest easy at night and have a good work environment.
Yeah, without a doubt. And you're echoing some of the things I tell my employees actually during the day about them being the last line of defense. So it was really interesting. And, I think it's a really good example for students as well that, starting out on the ground floor, is not such a bad thing. Getting your hands a little dirty is a good thing. I mean, So I've certainly worked with managers and directors of operations as well, that some have, actually done the work, that they're leading, and some have not. So, and, I have my own thoughts about that, but, how helpful do you think it has been that you actually have, worked on the ground and understand those processes in the position that you're in now?
It's been tremendous. So it's all about having your team buying in, right? They want to go and see that they're just not there for labor and grunt work. Because if they were there just for labor and grunt work too, they'd just be doing construction or something else with their hands, right? Yeah. They're there. They are, here to make an impact within an organization, whether they know it or not. Mm-hmm. So by being just visible, every morning I go walk the warehouse floor. I say hello to every one of my employees, call them out by name. I ask them how their day is going. Throughout the day, 2, 3, 4 times, depending on how my day is going, I will go walk the warehouse also. Even though I'm not the warehouse manager here, I still think like the warehouse manager. And it's all about just looking at certain things and seeing what's maybe out of place, and not necessarily reprimanding somebody, but coaching them on why it should be done a certain way. Right. And then you let them take that information and run with it. Mm-hmm. You can never have a successful warehouse operation by micromanaging somebody. What you could do is just give them the tools they need to succeed. So that's by either proper IT equipment. That might be by just talking to them about certain things about their day-to-day. It could be a myriad of different things that you need to do to go and show them that you're invested with them. So give you an example. During the pandemic, we had some short staff problems with everything going on, and I know many other places do. Yeah. When that stuff happens, you have to be able to step in. And when we were down to a handful of employees, we had a bad week, let's call it that. Mm-hmm. I stepped in, and I went with the guys, and I pretty much, packed boxes, loaded trucks, took out garbage, made calls to customers that I normally wouldn't make, that kind of stuff, right? It's all those things that they got to see that you're invested in the process and in them as they should be, as I'm preaching to them. So it's all about, you can't ask someone to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. Right. And being involved in all that stuff is always great, but also you can't be thinking that you're not better than somebody else too. Somebody in my warehouse has always taught me something, and I love that, respect that, and I want them to keep doing it more. Just how there's process flaws and employee flaws, I have my flaws as well too. And that's just because we're all human. Mistakes will happen, but how do you actually mitigate those mistakes? How do you evolve from them? How do you overcome them, and how do you stop them from happening again? All those things. And that goes into having weekly meetings, that goes into having one-on-ones with certain people, as many people as you possibly can. Basically, visibility is everything. That's the whole thing. Being approachable and having this mantra of wanting people to develop their skills and stay within the company and grow. We have a very good retention rate at NutraScience Labs. That's because we promote a very good culture. No one is a number here. Everyone's a face and a name. Yeah. Everyone's got their own story. And we all want to make sure that they get their job done as efficiently and as quickly as possible. And starts by me providing a consistent workplace, and then getting into the weeds and actually doing that process with them, and then helping them find their flaws, or at least getting their feedback on what the flaws are, and then going from there.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Very interesting points, and yeah, I totally agree. Being able to go out there, even at a leadership level, and sling some boxes around with everybody.
Can't forget where you came from. You can't forget that.
yeah, and I've certainly had the moments where I see something and I need some help loading a truck or something, and I'm throwing boxes off the conveyor on the pallets, and somebody says, "What are you doing? You the manager? You're supposed to do?" I said, "No. The job's got to get done." So
yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, the sales rep, the customer don't want to hear your problems. They just want to see the product out the door, and they want to move on to the next thing. Yeah. And by the way, that also goes with the truckers also, and your UPS, FedEx, DHL, all those drivers as well too. Establishing relationships with them as well too. They will go and be more invested in helping you out when you need them the most.
Right. Yeah.
So it goes on multiple levels too. It's not just the employees, the vendor also, and even giving him boxes, getting him out quicker, 5 minutes earlier, make his day easier, will make him come to you quicker the next time too.
Yeah, absolutely. Relationships are key. So, we kind of mentioned, I guess, NutraScience Labs, and, it's a great place to work and those types of things. But for those people that may not be familiar, why don't you just give us like a little brief overview of what it is you guys actually do and kind of, I guess, give us a sense of what your fulfillment operation is like as well.
Sure. So NutraScience Labs was founded in 2001. It was previously known as NutraCap Labs. We've been part of the Twin Lab Consolidation Corporation, or TLCC, family of companies since 2015. Headquartered on Long Island, New York, or you call it Farmingdale, in New York. NutraScience Labs provides dietary supplement brand owners with best-in-class contract manufacturing, packaging, labeling, and fulfillment services under one roof. So kind of the one call, does it all motto.
Okay.
Our staff possesses over 80 years of nutraceutical industry experience. We have shipped over 3,000 unique SKUs every year. And then we've also just expanded to a new facility in Hauppauge, New York, which is also on Long Island. It's strategically placed, so it is close to the expressway. For those who aren't too familiar with Long Island, trucking is very tough out here. You can only have a tractor trailer on any of the expressways, and in Long Island, I mean, you only have the Long Island Expressway at 135, and then maybe something out east I'm not thinking of. Anyway, it's strategically placed because we want to make sure the truck drivers have easy access to our facility to get things in and out as quickly as possible. It's also closer to where we do our manufacturing. And the bottom line is we want to be able to service our customers as best as we can. So how do we do that? By having more space so we could hold on to more raw goods, more components, or even do larger orders and then piecemeal them out to them on an X delivery date schedule for them.
Okay.
Yep. And so if you want more information about our services, you could visit our website, NutraScienceLabs.com, or call 855-492-7388, and you can speak with one of our knowledgeable representatives.
Okay, cool. So that's about NutraScience Labs, and now NutraScience Labs, you're dealing with vitamins and supplements, right? And you're kind of manufacturing those and then also distribute them as well. So obviously you're dealing with raw materials and then the finished products themselves as well. I'm sure they have a shelf life. So
Absolutely.
When it comes to storing those products, I'm certain that you have a controlled warehouse environment there. So talk to us a little bit about that and the importance of being able to control that environment and making sure that you're storing the things properly.
Okay. So first off, it's all about, like anything else in warehousing, controls, right?
Right.
So we have a temperature controlled warehouse. Everything is under what we call ambient temperature between 60 and 70 degrees.
Okay.
We have a daily cleaning schedule. We have to have certain things located in certain areas. So we have like an allergen section. We have things for different products in different areas for various reasons. We are CGMP and NSF certified. If you don't know, CGMP is Current Good Manufacturing Practices. So we have audits every year to make sure we are compliant. We also make sure that it's only certain products actually we store in our warehouse. So we don't ever have anything that's like, really hazardous, or like we would never have like a fertilizers or like spices or any of the kind of stuff you'd see at like a larger e-commerce, platform warehouse. You would never see stuff like that in our warehouse. Everything's regulated.
Got it.
So the reason why we do that, though, is because we want to make sure that your product is as fresh after manufacturing as it is sitting in our warehouse for, a day, month, a year, whatever it might be. Supplement has a different shelf life to it, and everything's got different, I guess, volatility to it when it comes to outside conditions. So it's pretty much very important to make sure that dietary supplements remain like dust and dirt free. They're in a storage center like with ambient temperature, low humidity, like I was saying before, to keep it as fresh as possible. The best way I could put it is this. So remember, everything we do is for human consumption, right?
Right.
If you bought a candy bar from the store and you left it in your car for 3 days versus leaving it in your pantry for 3 weeks, which was the first one you would go to?
Probably
the pantry, probably, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, same thing when it comes to dietary supplements. You want to make sure that you're doing fulfillment and storage with a company that is keeping your product under the utmost optimal conditions.
Mm.
At the end of the day, too, it's all about the end user experience and the reviews when it comes to fulfillment. So if someone doesn't like your product and they put a bad review on it, I mean, you could be kind of dead in the water by about 4 or 5 of those pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about making sure that not only is your product stored in the best possible condition, but also the potency level of the product actually stays consistent. So your customer gets the end results that you're preaching to them on the label in your marketing or whatever it might be.
And now a quick break to hear from our sponsor, Supply Chain Mavens. The past year has been full of fascinating and complex supply chain news. From shortages and forecasting challenges to issues with COVID-19 test components to the never-before-seen speed to market of the vaccine. In the past year, logistics and supply chain professionals like you have been nothing short of miracle workers. Supply Chain Mavens helps your team to continuously improve by developing tailored training solutions to enhance your team's competencies so they can successfully work across all aspects of supply chain. They offer exam preparation for the coveted APICS, certified in logistics, transportation, and distribution designation, as well as education in topics across the supply chain. Visit them at supplychainmavens.net/new warehouse to learn how they can help you advance your team's performance. That's supplychainmavens.net/new warehouse. Now back to the show. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of controls that go into it, and it sounds like you guys really have it in place and you've thought of it. And I wanted to ask you, you mentioned something about an allergen section, but it's something I've never thought about before. You know, if you're having things that can create allergic reactions,
Mm-hmm.
do you have any issues with, I guess, employees that might be allergic to those types of things, like working in those
That's
areas?
a great question. Knock on wood, we have never had that kind of issue. We supply all of our workers like with gloves and like proper safety equipment.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the allergen section, so everything staged a certain way, so one could not contaminate the other a certain way, right? So like if something is like got like nuts in it, and then you have something that's like nut free, you would never put the thing with nuts on the higher tier
Right.
of your racking. Because if something gets punctured or whatever, God
Oh, it
forbid,
falls down. Yeah.
it would contaminate the whole different bunch. So that area is more of a secure area for us. And then there's only like limited personnel on certain things for that. We do cross train here and there, but knock on wood, we've never had an issue with that. But it's something good to actually think of. It's something we really haven't come across, but it could potentially be an issue, but I don't see it.
Yeah. I was wondering, like, is that an interview question? Like, are you allergic to
never.
peanuts? Yeah.
I don't know if you can ask that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I'm curious about that, actually. So, obviously you're just kind of mentioning, the way that things are laid out. And, obviously that's a really important key to creating efficiencies in the warehouse as well. So, we're going to talk a little bit about some creating efficiencies and how you've done that over your career. But I'm curious, specifically when we're talking about this controlled environment, especially the allergens you mentioned there, not having like something with peanuts on the top, so that it wouldn't fall on other things. So how does your slotting process work in that sense? Like, are you using a system to drive that, or is it like an analysis? How does that work?
So we have a system. Our WMS actually could tell us where to put certain things based on a certain criteria.
Okay.
So it could be by the dims of the skid, dims of the cartons, whatever it might be. It also depends also if the client's a fulfillment client or not. So out of this location we're in now currently, we do both fulfillment and just our B2B business out of here.
Okay.
Our fulfillment is in one building, and then our core business is in 2 separate buildings.
Okay.
There is a small area where they do mix and match a little bit. But anyway, for the fulfillment part, it's pretty easy. So we do a bin system, a flow rack system, and then we have forward picking locations based on racking for the larger stuff. So I'll give you an example. Proteins have a low yield per pallet. You could fit usually about 500 or so onto a pallet, depending on the racking situation we have. Some of them racks can't really accommodate too many, or also the protein also it weighs a lot usually about 2 to 3 pounds a unit. So if you have any small void in the corrugated, you could have the bottom 2 tiers or 1 tier collapse on it. So we try to keep that as stable as possible by not putting too much on there. Usually about 1,500 pounds or so will be our max when it comes to a protein. But the reason why I say that is proteins aren't something you would ever put into a flow rack or a bin because there's not enough yield per carton or per bin to go and make it a real easy forward location. You'd be eating up 8 bins just for that for one customer, or 3 or 4 slots on a flow rack for it. Where if you had it in a closer rack position, and then you'd isolate your picking scheme based on certain products at certain times, then you could actually be more efficient with your picking structure. So I might just do one batch pick of just proteins for my guys, just to have them go out with a bigger cart versus going with like a smaller Rubbermaid thing or whatever it might be that's going through the bins and the flow racks and all that kind of stuff, and then just grabbing 20 something items at a time. This might be just 2 SKUs and just a handful of them at once, staged differently, processed a little differently.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when it comes to capsules and tablets and powders, those are smaller bottles, and those are more conducive when it comes to a bin or a flow rack. Our bins and flow racks are all located right by our picking table. So it's all about limiting steps. Like, you know this and anything else in a fulfillment operation too. You want to maximize the output of your employees by doing things like just having it close to the picking area, condensing the amount of SKUs you have on one order possibly. One picking sheet. And then on top of that too, things like as simple as like anti-fatigue mats, certain, I guess, other criteria you may have in your picking scheme, as far as like lot specific stuff you might be using to drive certain orders, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's about establishing consistent process times at the end of the day. So everyone wants consistency in their life. So we want to avoid as much double work as possible. So by that, running batches at certain times of the day, replenishment processes at certain times, and daily cleanup and prep for the next day is all going to make them better employees for you.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes total sense what you're saying there at the end. And you know, I'm always interested. I'm a bit of a slotting nerd, you could say. Yeah. So yeah, I'm always interested how other operations are doing it. Yeah.
You want the system to tell you as much as possible, but the system isn't foolproof also. It's not going to know for your odds and ends too. And everything we manufacture too. So we log in on the WMS side, the item length, width, and height, the weight, the carton specs, you know, how many are in inner pack, if you do a case pack on it, how many go to a pallet, also dimensions of that carton also. So when they go through the pick, pack, ship process also, every carton we use, we only have about 10 to 15 stock cartons we have, but the system will tell you based on the criteria we give it, what cartons to use. The guys, when they have their orders, we have 2 options. You can do it by paper, or you could do it by electronically through an iPhone or iPad. We're going more towards the iPhone, iPad stuff in the last year, which is something we implemented with our new WMS. Yeah. Anyway, the reason why I mentioned that is the guys have to go and scan each bottle they pick from. They have to scan the location. They have to scan the carton they're using from. And at the end of the day, they have to scan also the label that we put on each sealed carton, which then will generate the label for the parcel. Okay. So all that stuff is in place there. So really, there isn't much thought process when they're going through their pick, pack, ship process.
Interesting. Yeah. No, definitely the scan confirms help on the quality side as well, I'm sure. So, you know, we're focusing on a little bit of the slotting piece, but, you know, obviously, you know, your career has spanned like many different aspects of the warehouse, starting as just a temp working on the floor and now all the way to director level. So I'm curious, you know, what are some of the, I guess, you know, we don't have time to go through all the different efficiencies that you've been able to create in your career, but, you know, what are some of the, I guess, best ways that you would advise people to be able to create more efficiencies in the warehouse setting? What's the best kind of, I guess, way to go about doing that and having some results?
It all starts with feedback. Customer level is always a great starting point. Yeah. So they'll tell you, you know, when you're great, but you'll always hear it when you're doing wrong.
Absolutely.
So using, and and that's what it is. You know, warehousing, I don't care what industry you're in, usually it's a thankless job, and you kind of have to get past that part, and you just got to know that you're servicing people. That's it. And people are always going to go complain if something goes wrong when you barely ever hear when it goes right. But that's just what happens with warehousing. So the biggest thing I would say is taking that customer feedback and then implementing that into developing new process. By that, I mean increasing our picking times and schedule is by customer feedback. Hey, I'm on the West Coast. I don't get in until noon, and I choose not to use a cart connection with you. So I have to plug everything in at, 1:00 and your SLA is at 2:00. How do I go and amend that?
Yeah.
So what do? I schedule another pickup with another carrier. I then stagger my shifts a little bit. I might take their product on certain things, and I know that these X days are heavy, and I know at this time these orders are going to hit, and I will work on those at X time, but clear out my day prior to devote as many employees as I possibly can towards that. Upgrading your IT infrastructure is a huge, huge thing, and having the right people in the right seats that actually can help implement that as well. So I'm a warehouse, inventory management, logistics guy, right? But I'm not an IT guy.
Right.
However, I got to lean on the people that are in my company to hear my concerns and my focus, and then help us find the right vendor with the right software to meet our needs. And then from there too, one of the things we've done is establish a weekly or monthly training schedule with our IT people at the software provider for our WMS to just go over things that are going right and things that aren't going as good, and then finding ways to kind of mitigate that. Another thing also is pretty much having a variety for carriers when it comes to trucking or when it comes to small parcel too. Most of your customers really don't know a UPS Freight or a Saia or Old Dominion one from the other, right? We all know that one could be great and one could be just a price point kind of thing, and that's it.
Right.
So giving your customers the information that they need to make the best decision is always going to be a great thing, because you want to make sure they are servicing their customers right by just having the right information. So how do you do that? You give them, and it's a fine line when you do this, as much information as possible about your world. So I give them an outline of, hey, these are our carriers. This is what they do. This guy is great on price, but not so great on transit. This area is a great lane for them, not so great in this lane. This guy is great all over the place, but you're going to pay a fortune for it. And then from there, they make the decision what they need to do to go and get the right carrier for what they're looking for. Now, on an operations side of things, it's more about just taking the feedback from your employees and seeing where their shortcomings are. And you're always going to be as good as your weakest link. So something we've always done is just having this open line of communication with the team, and just getting their feedback, and then doing weekly trainings with them on different functionality within our WMS. You want them to almost feel that they could come for your job at some point, because that's how I started anyway, right? You have to go and have them vested in being as great of an employee as they can and showing them a future. And you hope that they get all of it and make you feel uncomfortable at your own job. And then maybe someday they do take your job, or you could go and send it, or they find it somewhere else too. But at least you did a good service for the community, though, right? Because at the end of the day, too, he might be shipping or she might be shipping something that I need from somewhere else. Yeah. Right. But you always continue to learn and never stay stuck in process, because just like how business evolves, process evolves too.
Yeah.
That's the way I would say it.
Yeah, 100% agree. And you mentioned in there upgrading about the IT aspect, and you said a couple of times you guys recently, I guess, upgraded WMS to a different one or upgrade. I'm curious, what did you recognize was, like, what was really the trigger for recognizing that you needed to upgrade?
So our old system was developed by our IT director that pretty much was no longer with the company, was on good footing for a while, but it was a customized system. So if you had to bring someone else into it, it was very hard for them to learn at that point. Right. There were flaws as far as end user control. That was the biggest thing, right? Every customer wants to see their inventory instantly. They want to go and see what has shipped instantly. They want to go and have all the control they possibly can when it comes to order input. This was something very basic. It was just putting in orders through like a CSV file, or you could FTP orders over. It was those two ways, and that's it.
Gotcha.
So our system we have now, we wanted to make sure it was simple for not just my warehouse team, but also a simple way to have our customers input orders. So through this system, it has all the functionality of every shopping cart you can imagine, either directly or through a third party indirectly, if you'd like. They have options to bulk load through a CSV if they want to. And then they also have an online template that they could go upload orders through. They have their own unique dashboard, inventory levels, shipping costs. They can look up all the reporting that they want under the sun, create their own reports as well, and let them just dictate what they want. Instead of letting them ask you, you give them all the control, to a certain extent, obviously. You don't want to show them everything, but you give them control of what they want to see about their line of business. And then there's a front end cost and a back end cost, everything, right? So your front end cost on this is obviously the build up of the IT infrastructure, the training, the system, the labor systems in place, support the WMS. But then there's the back end piece that you're saving the money on, and that's with the customer service part of it. You get less calls from your clients. They have more access to everything. You have a happier client, which means then also better feedback for someone. Hey, their pal is now starting up their own business out of their garage. Hey, let me go call NutraScience Labs. I could do this too. And I have all this access to all this information. And it's kind of a home run that way. And then don't get me wrong, you still need IT to still support you on some of the technical things, but it's more cookie cutter because everyone else in the industry is dealing with the same stuff versus something that was customized that one or two people that are, we'll call them on a very, high IQ level can understand other than me.
Yeah.
To put it nicely.
Yeah. It's interesting. And I'm always curious to hear, why people decide to, I guess, upgrade their technology or go in a different direction and things of that nature. So thank you for sharing the story. And so I guess over our conversation, the one central thing that seems to be clear with you and that you feel is important is communication. And you're talking about listening to feedback and going out there talking to the employees, listening to the employees, listening to the customer. And you also mentioned in there on projects and things like that, making sure that you're talking to the key members of the team so the right decisions are being made. So tell us a little bit about before we kind of wrap up here, tell us a little bit about what is that importance for meetings and keeping, not only having meetings, but keeping open lines of communication, with your team members, whether it's, team members that are working in the warehouse themselves, or it's team members at your same level working in different departments. So how important is that, and how have you found that doing that? Because I think you obviously put that into practice. How has doing that kind of led to more success for you?
All right. Well, the first thing is the easiest thing. You can never think you're always right. Okay. You have to be humble and you admit when you're wrong. Yeah. And you have to go and convey that to the people that you might have just had a different opinion and realize that you were wrong in the situation. And that goes on an interdepartment level. So first off, I have meetings with different departments every week on the executive level. And we go over, things that are going great, things that aren't going great, and then pretty much ways to go and fix them. And then the following week, we revisit them and then see the end result. And then if we have to dig into it further, we can kind of put it to bed. But we have to make sure that everyone knows this, that everything revolves around the sale. The sale is the immediate thing. There's no warehouse, there's no accounting department, there's no quality control, there's no other thing, other department if the sale is not made. So everything you have to do has to revolve around the sale. So when the salesman asks for information or needs a favor or whatever it is, when they say jump, you say how high. Right. It's that simple. And then everything else streams down from there. So when you have this sales-centric approach, you have to not only, buy into it, you have to go and actually talk to your employees on a lower level that might not understand it as much about the cause and effect and convey them hey, if you do this and this happens, this might happen. And then the customer might feel X way. So what I would say is, like I was saying earlier before, walking in the warehouse with my people or walking by myself and then mentioning things to my warehouse manager, my warehouse lead, or my fulfillment manager, or my inventory guy, or whoever it might be, not to reprimand them, but just to go and have them have that keen eye for detail. The devil's in the details and everything. Yeah. So besides the walk in the warehouse, like I mentioned before, we establish a weekly meeting with the employees to get good feedback. The team trusts you. It's the brutal honesty you're going to get out of them. And that's what we all want. There's no filter on anything. Right. We make sure that everyone knows where everything stands. It's obviously done in a very cordial manner, don't get me wrong, but we joke around with each other and we, all try to have a good time, and it's always a great work environment and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we know what we have to get done is get all of our orders out, and having a metric on everybody's dashboard or their iPhone or whatever it might be shows what they have to do for everything. Besides that, in the meeting, we establish a couple action items every week that we want to review for the following week. So that could be something about certain things are coming in a certain way from a component vendor, or maybe an ASN wasn't done a proper way from this particular customer, and things we might have to go and just gently, remind them, or that kind of thing. There's so much psychology involved in it. When you're doing the meeting, it's everyone's standing up. It's in a round circle kind of thing. And everyone's just kind of talking kind of thing. I mean, there's still like a structure to it, what's going, give me your best thing, give me something that concerns you, that kind of thing. All right. So what we do is I pretty much read the room, read their body language. Some people just don't say anything sometimes because they're not that kind of person, whatever. And I might have to pull them to the side and just be like, hey man, let's take a walk around the block or something like that. Let's take a walk in the park a lot, whatever it might be. Just telling you what you're feeling. And this is from a warehouse associate, or this is from it could be a warehouse manager or warehouse lead. Doesn't matter who it is. It's all about everyone has their own opinion about something, whether they want to share it or not. And you have to kind of sometimes get it out of them. And even though they might not think their opinion is valid or their concern is valid, it might be valid to me. And it's something that I might have to act on for them. So asking them as simple as like, hey, what can I do to make your day better? Yeah. That kind of stuff goes a long, long way. All right. Never forget where you came from, as even though you might be on a management level, never forget where you came from. And then doing those things with the guys will kind of help them be more open with you for these meetings. So, I mean, we'll talk about simple things like, is he trash on the floor, pick it up. This delivery coming in on this day, that's very important. We got to turn it around pretty quick for X, Y, and Z reasons, that kind of stuff. But it's not being somebody that preaches to them, but coming across as an equal to them. And because we all really are. We're all equal in this situation. We're all trying to get our job done and go home and see our families and go on to the next day. And that's it. So yeah, that's pretty much what we do.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome advice and information. I mean, I think, there's a lot of key points there. And I think, I totally 100% agree with you, having that open communication. And I think you mentioned earlier when we were in our discussion that, being approachable as well is hugely important. And I think that keeps the open line of communication. And like you said, if you're seeing that somebody's, like clamming up a little bit or doesn't want to share in a meeting or something, pull them aside and, say, what's going on. I think that's really important.
Yeah. It's not an intimidating environment, but it can be for somebody that's still a little standoffish. Somebody that, is more, it could be more introverted, or someone's not as great in social situations, whatever. But we still also do like company outings and company functions. I mean, it was obviously with, the pandemic, it's been a little tougher to get those things going on. But pre-pandemic, though, we had something every quarter we would do. We have, we have our core values are put all over our office and our warehouse. And it's about, we over I. That's the main one. I'm not gonna go through all of them because I know we have limited time, but we over I is the biggest one. And it's something that I, live and die with also, because at the end of the day, without my employees, I'm nothing. Without having good vendors, I'm nothing. Without the sale, I'm nothing. And without the sales support staff, I am nothing. We all have to go and work together to get the company objective done. The more money the company makes, the more money we all make. And it's a real team effort. And you have to just make sure that's established. And I know it's harder when you're dealing with bigger fulfillment centers. You kind of are more of a number and more of a metric than anything else. How many you've done this day, how many that. It's not necessarily about, pointing the finger at the employee. It's about finding out why. And not everyone's gonna be a gem. I'm not gonna lie to you and say, hey, everyone's great, whatever. But you have to go and find the cause and effect. At the end, and then from there, you make a determination if this person's a cultural fit or not. I would rather have somebody that tries their best every day. It might be a few steps slower than a guy that doesn't really care. His metrics are through the roof, but his actual success rate is in the tubes. It's not about just getting the job done and getting it. It's about getting the job right. We're a quality contract manufacturer. In the warehousing part, quality is everything as well too.
Absolutely.
And it's all about, like I said, like the end user experience is everything too. If you fail on that, the salesman may never get that next sale. It's about the repeat business, and good word of mouth and reviews are everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. And like you said, you could have the fastest picker in the world, but if the pick is not right, the quantity is off, it's the wrong product, then the pick doesn't really matter, to be honest,
Oh, it doesn't at all.
Yeah.
And you lose money on the back end too. customer service, sales rep, all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So really interesting stuff with you, Adam. It's great talking to you about all this and, hearing about your experiences and how you guys are running things over there at NutraScience Labs as well. So I want to thank you for coming on the show and spending some time with me.
Hey, thank you for having me. And if you're looking for any dietary supplement manufacturing, just call NutraScience Labs, 855-492-7388. Speak to one of our sales reps and we'll take care of you. Quality is key with our business. And hey, thank you again for having me, Kevin. It's been a real pleasure. And I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Definitely. And we'll put all the information for NutraScience Labs on the newwarehouse.com as well. So, Adam, thank you once again.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.